Hello, crafty friends! It's Alicia here with a project for Tailored Expressions. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a card with a view using the brand new Around Town Seaside layering stencil and cutting plate and the Enjoy Today stamp set with coordinating dies. My card will also feature the Shiplap Background stamp, Arch Stacklets dies, and the Serene Scene Landscapes die set. For papers, I'm using Sugar Cube and Blue Corn cardstock, and then Tailored Expressions Vellum and White Glitter cardstock. For inks, I'm using Blue Corn, Toffee, Mulled Wine, Cotton Candy, Chocolate Truffle, and Sugar Cube. I will be ink blending with some of those colors, so I got out coordinating blender brushes, and for stamping, I will be using the exclusive TE Teal Misty and the Just Press tool. And to hold everything together, I'll be using a variety of adhesives. Let's get crafty! To get started, I'm going to be using the Around Town Seaside layering stencils on a piece of Sugar Cube cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. To hold that piece in place, I added some tape runner to the back and took away a little of the tack with my fingers. I'm going to align stencil number 1 with the bottom left corner of my piece of cardstock, and then I will be using some pieces of removable labeling tape to hold the stencils down. For stencil number 1, I chose Blue Corn ink, so once I have some of that loaded on my blender brush, I use clockwise and counterclockwise motions until I have covered all of the open areas in a shade or a darkness that I like. Once that first stencil is done, I'm going to bring in stencil number 2, and I'm going to start by aligning it once again with the bottom left-hand corner. But the stencils themselves do have some alignment guides, so I also adjust it using those. Once I have it in place, I'm going to use those same pieces of removable labeling tape, and for stencil number 2, I am using Toffee ink. So again, this is the same thing. I'm going to load up my brush and then ink blend on that stencil until I like the coverage. I'll repeat this same process with stencil number 3, and for this I'm using Mulled Wine ink. Let me know in the comment section below what 3 colors you'll use for your Seaside layering stencil set. And now it's time for my favorite part, the big reveal. Aren't these such fun images? I use that coordinating die to cut each of those out. And here's a look at those. I just like how it has that nice white border all the way around each of the images. Now for my card today, I will only be using 3 of them, and that is the lighthouse, the crab, and the little sailboat. Now with those others, you could definitely make more cards, maybe even using the Around Town stencils for some fun backgrounds. For the background of my card, I want to stick with that seaside theme, so I will be stamping the Shiplap Background stamp onto a piece of Blue Corn cardstock that is 4 by 5 1/4 with Sugar Cube ink. When I use a red rubber background stamp, I do set my MISTI up a little bit differently. I'm going to place the background stamp on the left side on the door, and then I put my piece of cardstock face down on top of that. Now you'll see here I added a little bit of tape runner, and that's just so when I flip over the other side of the MISTI onto that, it picks up the cardstock so I know it's placed exactly correct over on that right hand side so that everything is nice and centered and straight. Sometimes with darker background cardstock like the Blue Corn, it does soak up the white ink. So I inked up the Shiplap background stamp twice with Sugar Cube, and then to help get nice, even, crisp coverage, I used the Just Press tool. I think this makes such a great accent for a seaside card. While I have my MISTI out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment, and for this card I am using Enjoy Today from the new Enjoy Today stamp set. I will be stamping with Blue Corn ink to match that background we just created on a scrap of Sugar Cube cardstock. Now with this sentiment, I don't get out the Just Press tool because fingertips usually work just fine on a small stamp like this. Now if you wanted it a little bit darker, you could always stamp it again, but this turned out great, so I brought in that coordinating die and took it off camera to cut it out. And speaking of die cutting, I had a little more to do, so I brought in the Arch Stacklets die set, and using the third from the largest, I cut a piece of TE Vellum, and with the fifth from the largest, I cut a piece of TE White Glitter Cardstock. For the Serene Scene landscape sets, I use one of those rolling hills on just a scrap of sugar cube cardstock. Here's a look at all of the pieces cut out, and now I'm going to use the sugar cube pieces to create a background scene onto the glittery arch. To hold this in place, I added some tape runner to the back, and now I want to start by making kind of a sandy beach or a sandy hill down toward the bottom. Now, to make sure I have enough area down there stenciled, I did go ahead and bring in the die cut images, and then I'm going to hold that in place once again with some removable labeling tape. For the sandy area at the bottom, I will be using chocolate truffle ink and a brown blending brush, and I will just make sure it just stays right below that mask I created. Now, I did try earlier using Toffee on a test piece of cardstock to go more with the stenciling I did for the images, but it did turn out a little too light, so I thought the chocolate truffle ink would work a little better. I do the same thing as I do with the stencils, clockwise, counterclockwise motions until I think I have some good coverage, and you'll see there I did lift that up to see how much of a contrast I had, and I liked it, so I removed that first mask. Now it's time to ink blend some sky blue. For this, I brought in the other part of the mask that I created, and this is going to cover up the sand. I adjusted that so the curve and the placement was correct, and then I moved it down just a tad before holding that in place with the removable labeling tape. This is just so that the blue and the brown will get right up next to each other. For the sky portion of the background, I'm using cotton candy ink and a blue blender brush, and this will be pretty much the same as the bottom. I'm going to cover that area with the light blue, but I did try to concentrate more of the color right near toward the sandy line or that curved line, just so the top was a little bit lighter. Here's a look at that piece all finished. I like how the glitter cardstock gives the sand kind of the grainy look and feel, and then it gives the water a shiny reflection. Let me know below if you have ever ink blended onto glitter cardstock. Now all of the pieces of the card are ready, so it's time to start assembling. For this, I use liquid glue on the back of the scene that I just created, and then I'm going to center that onto the vellum mat. Now I use liquid glue not only to get a nice tight hold, but also so I would have some wiggle time to move that around and get it as close to perfect as I could. Once that was in place, I added more liquid glue, this time keeping it just behind that same scene so you didn't see it through the vellum, and then this piece got added to the center of our shiplap background piece. For the next step, I did switch up the adhesive, and I used a tape runner on the back of the blue corn cardstock piece, and now I'm going to add this to the center of a top fold sugar cube card base. I try to get a nice even border all the way around, and once that was in place, I pressed it down. To add some dimension to the card and make the images pop, I did add some foam sticky strip to the back of each image. Now I'm going to pull the release paper off the back of the lighthouse, but before I put that on the card front, I'm going to add some liquid glue. This once again gives me some wiggle time to adjust it just right, but it also adds some extra glue and adhesive because with the texture of the glitter cardstock, you really want to make sure it's down firmly. You'll see that after I put on each piece or each image, I did put a stamp block on top just to help everything adhere nicely. Finally, I finished it off by adding the sentiment. For this, I just used a liquid glue flat down onto that background scene, and here are some close-up looks at the finished card. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. If you enjoyed the process, a thumbs up is appreciated. And if you're not already a subscriber, we do hope you'll click on the button below so you're the first to know about our latest videos. To find out more about the products I used today, you can check out the links in the description box below or visit the Tailored Expressions online store at tailoredexpressions.com.